Hi, I'm Jenny, and today I had something really lucky happen, and I actually think there must have been an angel involved because this was kind of crazy. I went to church, and before I went, I was careful to silence my cell phone. Now, I'm always looking for my cell phone. In fact, I call my cell phone more than anybody else calls my cell phone because I'm always trying to find it or whatever. But I had silenced the cell phone, and I ran in the house and I went back out to the car and took off for church. And then when I was in church, there was a quote that was given, and I wanted to grab my cell phone and text it into a message so that I would have that quote, and I couldn't find it. So when I left church, I thought, well, maybe it's in the car. No, it wasn't in the car. And I thought, well, I know I put it in my purse, and it just drives me crazy, because my purse is not this big, but it's like this abyss, when you go to look for a cell phone. So I went to the car, and I figured, well, it wasn't there. So I went on to Costco, and when I was at Costco, I was shopping for some cat food, and I wanted to get a chicken for a family in the church that was sick. The whole family was sick, and I thought it would be a nice gesture to do. So when I go in Costco, I tend to fool around. It's a nice place to go, and they do have samples, and I checked some of them out. And about, I'd say 30 minutes later, I went back to my car, and I had purchased some water, so I asked a young man to help me carry the water out to the car and put it in the car more than carry it out. And when I got to my car, I couldn't believe it, because on top of my car, there was my cell phone. Now, I had driven all the way from my side of town to another zip code on the other side of town. I'd gone over an overpass. I'd parked the car in a really raunchy neighborhood. It's, where there's a lot of people hang out who are on drugs or just vagrants or whatever for one reason or another. But the car sat there for an hour and 20 minutes at least while I was in church. And then I got in the car again to drive to Costco, and I'd gone up a hill and around a bend, and how that cell phone stayed on top of the car, I didn't know. But I just said, thank you, Jesus, because I figured that, somebody had sent an angel to sit on that thing or make it stick to the car. There's no reason why it should have. So, I had decided that if I lost another cell phone, that this was it. I was going to get my old cell phone, just keep it charged, have it so it could do 911, and I wasn't going to go there anymore, because I had a cheap flip phone for 13 years. I never lost it. And then when I got a nicer cell phone, it was about $100, and the storage card in it and all the fancy stuff I was told I needed, right? I lost that thing within a month and a half. I put it on top of the car and went on the freeway. And then I replaced that phone, and 3 months later, I lost the same phone on a side street that runs along the house here, and it had been run over many times when I realized what had happened and went back. So that's why I feel it was divine intervention on this third cell phone. I'm grateful. I am so grateful today. And it reminded me of another time when many, many years ago, I had an elderly friend who had a deceased wife, and it was a weekend, kind of a lot like this. I think it was Memorial Day, because he wanted to get the flowers for the cemetery. And I went to Safeway, and that place was packed because people were shopping for football games and trips and picnics and all that. And he gave me a $20 bill, which 35 years ago was a lot of money, or 38 years ago. It's a lot of money today to me. But anyway, I was in the store, and I went around all these different places to get my stuff, and I picked out a beautiful plant for him so that he could take that to his wife's grave. He was it was hard for him to stand a long time. So that's why I went ahead and did that for him, and he gave me the money. And when I went to go up and pay for this plant, I didn't have his $20 bill in my hand. I'd had it in my fist like this while I shopped, which was really dumb, but that's what I did, and that's who I am. And I don't think I do that anymore. But I said, oh my God, I was going to have to come up with all this money. I was going to have to come up with the $20. And I prayed. I says, Lord, please, please. And I was trying to think of where I was, and I remember I was in the fresh produce, and I had picked up some fresh produce and was looking at it, and it was with the right hand, which was the hand the money was in. So I went over to the fresh produce, and on the floor, right in front of that fresh produce, and this was 25 minutes later, in a store where there were literally hundreds of people, there was that $20 bill. So there are people, they say that, there's God looks after fools and drunks and, he looks after us all, but sometimes our own dumb decisions get us into trouble. But I think there's times when a good deed doesn't go unpunished. One of my favorite slogans is no good deed goes unpunished, which isn't always true, but sometimes it seems to happen, and what it does, it hits like a hammer. So anyway, maybe it was because I was getting the flowers for his wife's grave. Maybe it was because today I was getting the chicken for those people. Maybe it was just because I was very fortunate, but I can tell you gratitude really popped up. And those kind of circumstances keep us going. They really do. They keep us going a while. And I had another friend tell me a story where he's a Christian, and he had locked his keys in the car. And because he locked his keys in the car, it detained him from a route that he was on every day at a specific time. And it was when the Caldecott Tunnel exploded. There was a tanker that was hit, and everybody in that Caldecott Tunnel was killed, and it was a terrible fire. And he was supposed to be it's a long tunnel. He was supposed to be in it just at the time that was to happen. But he was spared because he locked some keys in the car. And I have another friend who told me about being on a bridge here in California. She was visiting, and she found out that there was a $5 toll fee, and she'd forgotten about it, and she was going crazy looking in her purse for some money as she was driving across the bridge just to fish for it. And she knew that she'd just have to tell him that she'd just have to sign the paper and pay them later, which happens to a lot of people. But just as she pulled up, the toll gate person told her, the car ahead of you paid for you, which is a random act of kindness sometimes people do here in California, and I'm sure other places too. But she just was so grateful. And I love to hear stories like that, because what they do is they keep me keeping on, the best I can, because sometimes it's hard. We are challenged, and it's nice to be encouraged with these little quips and quotes and short stories from life. Something I really like is a good story. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope you'll find a blessing and a little mini miracle in your own life.